Are you struggling to understand dating from a man's perspective? Well, here's 5 innocent mistakes women make that frustrate men. Women have always been nature's gatekeeper for protecting the next generation. Women have relied on biological mating strategies hardwired into the subconscious to seek the best option for a mate. If they find a higher quality male, women would, in modern terms, monkey branch their way over to him. In the 1960s, the sexual revolution and feminism started bending reality. The new social construct fights against female nature, telling women to take control of their evolutionary impulses and rewrite the rules. This has led to women experiencing self-conflict with what they think they want and what they actually want. Imagine the latest and greatest commercial airplane. With a click of a few buttons, the plane can be flown from one side of the planet to the other on autopilot. The autopilot can be switched off entirely, and the plane can be flown manually. Just like the airplane, women have the ability to switch off the autopilot for evolutionary programming and, to a large degree, consciously input their own steering. Trouble arises when the manual steering begins, but the autopilot hasn't been turned off. This results in the plane receiving 2 sets of conflicting instructions, ultimately causing the plane to crash and burn. Nobody wants their plane to crash from the pain of mixed signals, so we're going to cover how female nature narrows women's focus, situations where new social constructs try to override autopilot, and take a look at men's primal urges and how they are nothing like women. By the end of this video, you will understand female nature and how desperately she wants to fly on autopilot. You will also understand how female nature limits your focus, and this sometimes can cause drama in the modern world. So let's fly into the first scenario women commonly get wrong. Have you ever heard of a guy friend-zoning a woman? Probably not, but men get stuck in the friend zone all the time. They become an emotional support buddy without the sexual benefits they truly desire. Kudos to the woman using their biological lens for not procreating with this kind of man. Your female nature sees he is not an alpha, therefore unworthy for procreating. The red flag is when your friend zone guy asks for dating advice, and then you tell him to be sensitive, nice, and in touch with their feelings. When he uses your advice and gets rejected or friend zoned by another woman, the disappointment grows into a pit of frustration. Ladies, this advice you're giving, it's not wrong. The advice is to the wrong person. You're attracted to the alpha badass, so when the friend zone guy is asking for advice, tell him the desires of your female nature. The female's mind is only thinking about the top 20% of men when it comes to looks and procreating. The other 80% are pretty much non-existent. For instance, it's a late night, you're feeling lonely and begin Tinder swiping. You're only looking at the profiles of men that your primal side is attracted to, while the other 80% gets swiped left without a second thought. If they were to show back up, you wouldn't even recognize them for coming up twice. Biologically, you are wired to focus attention on men worthy of procreation. So if you want to do your guy friend a favor, advise him to embody the alpha male spirit, and he will attract more women. Now it's time to fly into what women forget to understand about men's biological nature. How often do you put yourself into the shoes of normie, the average-looking man who makes up about 65% of the dating pool? Do you ever think about what it's like for him to date? Do you ever wonder how hard it is for him to sleep with a woman? Probably not. Women must understand that female nature will always have sexual privilege. Attention from men falls into your lap with no effort because you're always meeting men who are subconsciously focused on procreating. All this attention blinds you from how much work it really takes for the average man to attract a woman. But it's the complete opposite for him. The odds are stacked against him, which causes a scarcity mindset, and this leads to anxiety while flirting. That's why pickup lines feel forced. So instead of dealing with this, they rely on dating apps to meet women, which only lead to casual encounters and rarely to relationships. So next time you're out with your girlfriends, you don't have to sleep with every man who attempts to flirt with you, but at least give him some grace. Be nice to him, because you now understand how hard it is for normies to sleep with a woman. Shockingly, the number of sexless men has tripled over the last 10 years. Tripled. Because of this, men's frustration is channeled into other activities that destroy their masculinity and make them less of an alpha. When you find a suitable man to date, and there is a battle between autopilot and manual control, if you don't bring this issue to awareness, your plane is liable to crash. Women assume men know that feminism does not apply in the bedroom, like it does in the workforce and every other aspect of life. Women don't see the problem men have when it comes to respecting boundaries for equality versus dominating the relationship with a masculine traditional role. If you want your man to give you the 50 Shades of Grey treatment, then just communicate this from the very beginning. Make it clear your relationship needs the masculine role of domination to give you the feeling of protection. This will ultimately satisfy your deep, primal urge for security. Now, for the women who are, for lack of a better term, in a dry spell, here is where society is in a major contradiction. As I said earlier, women have sexual privilege compared to men. But society has programmed women from a very young age to think sex is bad. The amount of negative labels women receive compared to men is astonishing. There are YouTube channels making tons of money shaming modern women who have high body counts, yet publicly exploiting men doesn't make a profit. Some women completely turn off autopilot, manually drive the airplane, and adopt the biological male mindset of having meaningless sex. These women often tell themselves, if a man can sleep with countless women without emotional attachment, so can I. They don't realize that men with high body counts are just the top 20%, and it's always the good-looking Chad who doesn't have to put in any work. The majority of women find it difficult to express their desires and act on their privilege for the fear of being sexually aggressive, which leads to the lack of sexual activity even when they desire it. Men rarely understand these internal struggles women have because they can only see women as having sexual privilege. It's important to recognize the complex societal factors that shape women's attitudes towards sex and to acknowledge the barriers that may prevent them from accessing their sexual privilege. When it comes to men and their primal impulse to procreate, it's counterintuitive for men to be in a committed relationship. The emotional labor required for men to satisfy female nature is time-consuming. Men often give up personal interest and freedom to comfort and cater to the needs of their partner. When women fail to acknowledge the effort he puts into the relationship, resentment may build, which causes him to get frustrated and hurt. To minimize misunderstanding and relationship problems, it is important for you to compliment your man when he goes above and beyond to make you happy. It's important to acknowledge and understand the impact of female nature and how it influences modern relationships. With the sexual revolution and feminism challenging traditional gender roles, women face self-conflict between their evolutionary impulses and societal expectations. It's essential to be aware of how female nature narrows women's focus and situations where new social constructs attempt to override autopilot. At the same time, we must recognize men's primal urges and how they differ from women's. As we strive to navigate modern dating, it's crucial to communicate your desires effectively and be considerate of the struggles and challenges faced by individuals of all genders. Share below in the comments section what steps you're taking to better understand and manage our evolutionary impulses while embracing new social constructs in modern relationships.